President Al-Assad tells the Turkish Cumhuriyet newspaper that the Turkish government has destroyed most of the relations that were built between Syria and Turkey, but the base remains, which is the relations between the Syrian and Turkish peoples. President Al-Assad stresses that Syria will not accept anything imposed from outside, adding that the Americans are part of the problem because they support the terrorists. Competent authorities storm into terrorist hideouts in Homs and Aleppo and arrest some of them in addition to confiscating their weapons. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our news for today. Cumhuriyet Turkey Daily has published a part of the interview held with President Bashar al-Assad on the events in Syria and regional and international developments. A number of Turkish news media, namely Cumhuriyet Daily, represented by Jaka Ozal, and D and CNN Turk channels, and Posta Daily, represented by Muhammad Ali Perand, Hurriyet Daily, represented by Ertuğrul Özkök, Radical Daily, represented by Fahim Tashtaktin, and Khabar Turk Daily, represented by Amrin Zaman, had requested an interview with President Al-Assad. As Syria follows an open policy with the news media, their requests were approved to grant them the interviews. However, 4 representatives of the aforementioned news media were not able to come to Syria to conduct the interview after the director of the office of the Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan had contacted them and asked them not to hold the interview. In this interview with the Turkish Cumhuriyet Daily, the President said, "This phase is full of events and developments. It delineates the map of a whole region and resembles what happened 100 years ago when the Ottoman Empire declined and differences erupted between the Arabs and the Turks. Both Arabs and Turks lost," the President said, adding that it is not reasonable that we suddenly want to return to that phase in order for us and you to lose again. Since the beginning of the crisis in Syria, we have been trying to work in more than one direction. The first is to solve the internal crisis in Syria and confront the terrorists. The second is to attempt to safeguard the Syrian-Turkish relations. However, we have seen in every address made and every step taken by the present government in Turkey an attempt in the direction of blowing up such relations. I can tell you that they have succeeded to destroy most of the structure we had built. What has remained now is the basis, namely the relations between the two peoples. The President added that the Syrian side had no knowledge of the plane's identity before downing it. The plane was shot down by the smallest anti-aircraft gun that does not go beyond 2.5 kilometers. It is very difficult for an anti-aircraft guns to shoot down a plane unless it flies very low. This means that it was less than 2 kilometers far from land and at a very low altitude. We, as a state, are in a state of war. When an aircraft is not identified, then you can assume that it is an enemy aircraft. What has not been talked about, the President pointed out, is that the place the aircraft penetrated our airspace is the same place across which Israel had always tried to penetrate our airspace. Consequently, the breach at this border site gives the impression to the Syrian military that the plane could be hostile and he has to act on such basis according to the aircraft speed, altitude, and extent of its penetration of the airspace. The enemy for us is only the Israeli enemy. We felt that Erdogan and his government wanted to take advantage of this subject to reap gains they had not been able to reap last year in order to create hostility between the Syrian and Turkish peoples, the President stressed. We wish no such event happened with any hostile plane, not only with a Turkish plane, yet an unidentified plane, and under the same circumstances, even if it were a Syrian plane, would be considered hostile. Why they did not notify us that there were planes which would approach the Syrian airspace? Had there been coordination between the Syrian and Turkish armies, we would have been notified about the maneuvers. Appraisal of the situation would have been easier in such cases. The Turkish side should speak out publicly what the plane was doing in Syrian airspace. Yet, we are not demanding such explanation because we regard the events as casual accident, the President pointed out. We neither today nor in the future regard Turkey as an enemy, even if we differ with governments. For us, it is not enough for governments to antagonize one another. Therefore, there are no Syrian military reinforcements in the direction of Turkey. No state is entitled to open fire unless its territories are transgressed upon by another state. When anything inside Syrian borders is targeted, then it is an act of aggression on Syria. During storming in operations of terrorists' hideouts in the Al-Qasir province and Homs suburbs last night, authorities seized the factory and the warehouse of explosive devices and found 25 explosive charges prepared to be remotely controlled. They weighed between 30 and 40 kilograms. Authorities also intercepted last night an armed terrorist group which attacked law enforcement troops in An-Nizariya, inflicting heavy losses among their ranks. In Aleppo, the authorities, having received information from the inhabitants about a house used by an armed terrorist group in the Meridian neighborhood, broke into the place, captured 5 terrorists and confiscated their weapons. People's Assembly Speaker Muhammad Jihad al-Laham has underlined the importance of the Syrian-Iranian relations and the need to activate them, particularly in terms of parliamentary cooperation. In a statement today after his arrival in the Iranian capital for a 3-day visit to Tehran, al-Laham said his visit aimed at consolidating parliamentary ties and exchanging viewpoints and experience. Al-Laham underlined the importance of maintaining coordination between the parliaments of both countries, particularly in light of the universal conspiracy and the political, economic and media war Syria and its people are being exposed to. He added that we must consult with our friends and explain the dimensions of this conspiracy. We will also discuss other topics of common interest. Former Lebanese President Emil Lahoud has reiterated confidence in Syria's ability to come out stronger from the present crisis, which is created by foreign sides, affirming that the Syrians alone are capable of solving their problems through dialogue. In a statement issued by his information office, Lahoud said, any solution should not come from abroad at all or from the enemies of the Arab nation and deceived the Syrians. Lahoud said, solutions from abroad will not find their way to implementation. The world community and the real friends of Syria must help find a solution through national dialogue inside Syria. Secretary General of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, General Command Ahmed Jibril, has affirmed that the front stands by Syria's side because it has defended the Palestinian cause and has opened its doors before all the Palestinians, offering all sorts of political and military support to them. In an interview with the Al-Mayadeen channel, Jibril said, the attempts to control Syria by regimes that are agents of the American project have failed. Therefore, the project moved to a phase of breaking Syria and tearing it apart from inside in favor of a new Middle East. Jibril pointed out that what is happening inside Syria is not an internal local movement, but a change in the region's structure in order to get it fragmented and divided. Jibril added that what is happening on Syria's land is a decisive battle in which Syria must triumph, and the American Zionist project, funded by some Gulf countries, must be defeated. Then we will be, as Palestinians, very happy because the road has started to be paved towards occupied Jerusalem. The Russian Foreign Ministry announced that the final document endorsed by the Geneva meeting, which was held by the Working Group on Syria, opens prospects for effective international contribution to the peaceful settlement in Syria if the parties would undertake coordinated steps and measures to ensure a full implementation of Annan's plan and to support his efforts to launch a political process led by the Syrians themselves. The ministry added that the special representative of the Russian president for the Middle East, Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov, had briefed Syria's ambassador to Moscow, Riyad Haddad, of the results of the Geneva meeting. Haddad expressed appreciation for Russia's consistency and its firm stance towards the crisis in Syria as it seeks to see a speedy halt of violence, not allowing foreign interference in the Syrian affairs, as well as helping to restore peace and stability to the country. Terrorism hits Iraq today as 25 people were killed and 40 others wounded when a car bomb exploded in a crowded street in the Diwaniyah district south of the country. 4 other Iraqis were killed and 21 wounded following the explosion of 2 bombs planted near a road in Karbala city. Also today, a university professor was killed by gunmen inside his house in Nablus neighborhood in Mosul. In occupied Palestine, the Israeli occupation forces launched a series of raids in a number of West Bank cities, arresting 10 Palestinians. In Jenin, Israeli occupation forces stormed into the village of Nazlit Zaid and broke into a Palestinian house and ransacked its contents. The occupation forces also erected a military checkpoint at the entrance of Tanig village, west of Jenin, obstructing the movement of citizens. Iran successfully test-fired several ballistic missiles, including a long-range variety. The surface-to-surface missiles successfully hit their targets, which included Shihab-3 missile. Iran has also tested a variety of missiles, including a Shihab-3 variant with a range of 2,000 kilometers. Iranian military commander said that Iran will also test unmanned bombers in its military exercises tomorrow. Tehran says it aims to assess the accuracy and effectiveness of its missiles and weapons systems. With this, we end our news bulletin for today. For more information about the region, you can visit our website in English, Syrian-Iranian.org.